probably.
Yeah, and maybe they might have tonight, actually, after the game. That might have got brought up. I don't know. I might be able to pull that up real quick. But
I'll do it.
Okay. Let's see. I'm just going through my notes here. I guess actually we'll just transition right into that, into the Orioles series. So Austin's checking on game.
Yeah, it's still TBA.
Still TBA. Okay. All right. So tomorrow we'll just go through the Orioles series here real quick. Hard to make a prediction if we don't know the full lineup as far as starters go. But tomorrow is Nathan Eovaldi, and he's one of the more fascinating guys because he's pitched 15 innings so far, hasn't given up an earned run. So,
yeah, I texted Dave the other day. I was like, you and I have the same number of earned runs as Nathan Eovaldi does as a Red Sox, and he was just like, that's wild.
Yeah. So. Chris, you must have been pretty impressed though with his start against New York, because you're more familiar with him than all of us.
I mean, Eovaldi is a guy that he can give you what you saw against New York, but then New York rather, but there's also times where he will give you a clunker or two, and maybe this is the year where he's really not going to give you that clunker. He's going to be more of that dominant guy. And, I mean, who knows? I know the Yankees released him after he was supposed to have Tommy John. Tampa signed him to a 2-year deal knowing that he wasn't going to pitch year one. Came back year two, which was this year. And then you saw what happened. Was traded to the Red Sox for Jalen Beeks. And he's really been a dominant pitcher. The only thing that's really been worrisome is his home runs, which he's allowed over, I think, 12 or 13 this year. But he has a high swing and miss rate this year. This by far his career high, and he's being able to command his breaking stuff, which has been his splitter. So maybe the Red Sox were able to find the hot pitcher. It wasn't the big name guys as last year. When you look at Verlander and Sonny Gray, but I mean, Eovaldi doesn't have to be your ace. You have Sale, you have David Price to a certain degree, depending on what happens with him, but you just need to be able to have a starting pitcher who can give you 5, maybe 6. And Eovaldi, if he's on, he can be dominant like you saw.
Yeah, absolutely.
He definitely wasn't the sexy pick, that's for sure. I mean, it was out of nowhere. I don't even think he was really on any Red Sox fans' radar. And it came out of nowhere, and so far it's a great thing.
Well, I think when you look at Eovaldi, the probably one of the reasons why he was traded, and I think the Red Sox had the ability to get him even though they didn't give up much. I mean, you have to look at the guys who were out on the market from the get-go. Michael Fulmer, out with an injury. Noah Syndergaard, out with an injury. Jacob deGrom wasn't getting traded because the value was as high as from here to the moon. Guys left and right were getting hurt, or Cole Hamels wasn't performing in Texas, although he's doing better now. J.A. Happ was doing terrible with Toronto, but now since he's been acquired from Toronto to New York, I mean, today against Texas, I get it, albeit the Rangers, he had 9 strikeouts today. So he's looked good in his his only 2 starts with New York. So I think this was the year where there wasn't going to be the big name guys like you saw with Gray and Verlander and so forth going from the trade deadline. It was more so what kind of player was going to be undervalued at the deadline and who was going to acquire that guy and have him show up. I mean, the Red Sox got Pierce for practically nothing, and he killed the Yankees. He's a left-handed pitcher killer. So, something to watch.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about Hamels for a little while. We were talking, I mean, even Matt Harvey, and I don't think we thought that was going to happen, but it was a name that got brought up every day, throughout the media, and he surprisingly didn't even get moved, and I guess he's been getting shelled lately anyway, so, it's probably fortunate for everyone who didn't pursue him aggressively, but I certainly was not expecting Eovaldi, and I was a little bit familiar with him with New York, and a lot of you told me right away, Chris. I mean, you texted me and said, you thought it was a steal, to only give up Beeks for him. And you point out the home runs, how they're high, but his whip's actually down. So they're really scoring, off of him via the long ball. He's, his whip was below 1. I think it was like .89 on the day of the trade. So, and then he's just been lights out since we had him anyway. So it was just really well timed. And when a new pitcher comes in, I always look for something that I call Mark Melancon syndrome. Someone who just can't pitch in a big market. And I'm not shocked that he's adapting very well because he did come from New York, but it couldn't have worked out any better. And the crazy thing is right all the way through until today, there's people asking the media, speculating whether he's going to end up in the bullpen, especially where it's struggling as we near the postseason. And I'm thinking they're crazy if they take him out of the rotation. I mean, we don't have many righties anyway, outside of Porcello, who's a little shaky depending on who his opponent is. So, I mean, I think Eovaldi is a definite 3-4 starter, in the postseason. And if they try to go with anyone else, I think that's insane.
Yeah, nailed it.
Yeah. Okay. And so anyway, tomorrow he is up against Bundy, who seems to be reining it in. Only gave up 2 runs in his last start against the Rangers. Not having a great year, though. Holt actually hits him pretty good. So does Sandy. They happen to be the coolest guys in the lineup right now as far as offense goes. But Benintendi has been killing it against him. 348 and 23 at-bats. Mookie hits him pretty good, and so does Xander. Surprisingly, J.D. Martinez only hitting 125 against him. So I've always been impressed with Bundy. Prior to this season, I thought he had high upside. I figured he could kind of be a strong number 2, so to speak. And so it's.
Well, yeah, at one point the O's thought him and Gosman were going to wind up being the future of that rotation.
Yeah,
and they also thought that this franchise had a brighter future than it actually did.
Right. I was a dummy. I picked them to be a wild card team, but I was way off on that one.
Real quick, the J.D. Martinez sample size against him really small. It's only 8 at bats, but I think he has a homer and he does have a homer and 3 RBIs against him. So
does he? Yeah, he does. Yeah. Yeah. So and now he's a note taker. Every at bat he goes and jots down whatever data he takes. So maybe he'll turn that around anyway.
Should be a big series for Mookie, though. I mean, we're going to his favorite place on earth.
Yeah, that is at Camden Yards, isn't it? It feels like we've played them there every time. I feel like
every single time.
It feels like they haven't played us at home yet. I'm sure they have, but yeah. So interesting matchup. We seem to be catching Bundy at the right time. Well, the right time for them. He's starting to turn it around. So. It'll be fun to watch, and I've yet to be able to see a full Eovaldi start. It seems like I've been working or whatever. So, finally, I'll get to watch him pitch. Hopefully, that doesn't jinx him. But David Price on Saturday against TBA. I mean, he's been pitching well. Aaron Boone had to put Aaron Judge and Gary Sanchez on the DL just so he could get a win against them. But
easy, Tiger.
Yeah. Did you see my epic rant on him today?
Yeah.
I went a little off the rails, but it was called for. Yeah. I expect he'll pitch well, and I mean it seems like. Maybe Sandy is the guy he needs behind the plate. And you look back to 2016, Porcello's run coincides when Sandy Leone started catching him. So, maybe that ends up being a good pairing, and Price just kind of coasts, the rest of the way. Although Cleveland,
we all agree that Sandy's the postseason catcher anyway. So once Blake gets back, we have a couple of. I guess he can get two of the starts maybe. Because Sandy's going to catch what? Price, Porcello, Sale, and then I guess Blake will catch Evaldi and Johnson.
Probably. He must have some experience catching Johnson down in Pawtucket, and they liked him catching right, so I mean that's a similar style. So it's possible, and who knows? I mean, you could see Blake slotted in. Blake slotted in throughout the field as well, in certain spots. Any thoughts, Chris, on David Price?
Yeah, I mean, I've said this for the last, 3 or 4 years on Price. I'm sorry, but whatever he does in the regular season, honestly, and not to be rude, means jack shit. He got
the same
paid.
with this whole team.
Well, but with Price specifically, he got paid. How much money is he making? How much?
217 total.
Okay,
31 per year.
Okay, $31 million. You're not paying him to get 15 wins in the regular season. You're paying him to get wins in the postseason. And what has he done in the postseason, taking away the 1 year when he was a reliever last year? What's his record in the postseason?
As a starter, it's 0 for 9.
0 for 9. And his ERA is, I think, above 9. 9 or 8, one of those. But either way, he is not a postseason pitcher. And if the Boston Red Sox put him in that spot, he is going to choke. He has shown that. How many times can you touch fire before you get burnt? Price is not a starter in the postseason. He is a bullpen guy, and he can be an Andrew Miller type. But if you start him, I'm telling you right now, you're going to regret it. And maybe at the end of the day you won't, because then if you lose, he'll opt out, and then you never have to see him again. And all that money goes away.
Well, unfortunately, I think Chris's magic 8-ball is right. So he needs to be in the bullpen in the postseason, 1,000%.
I don't think he's going to be, though. That's the horrific thing. I really don't think he's going to be. And I agree 100%. But see, not to go through my whole rant again, but there's
stoke the fire.
There's a faction of this Red Sox fan base who just won't let go of this guy, and it doesn't matter what damning stats you point out. They think he's going to win as a starter, and he has a 100% failure rate as a starter, and our chances.
People just need to look how good he was for the Rays during their postseason run, from the bullpen.
Yeah, I mean he recorded the final out against us in the Game 7 in 2008.
Was shut down that series too.
Yeah, but
he's phenomenal from the bullpen. He's continued to show that time and time again. Even last year, he shut down the eventual World Series champions every time he came out.
Yeah, the point I failed to mention though earlier, I kind of touched on it, but I didn't hit the nail on the head, and it's that the Red Sox have a better chance of winning the World Series playing against David Price than they do him pitching for us, because he was part of that 2013 run against when we played him in Game 2 of the ALDS when he was with the Rays. And I was thinking he had like a sub-2 ERA at Fenway Park going into that game, and he hadn't really been exposed, as a choke artist yet. And I thought, man, if we don't beat Matt Moore, who had a great year in that 2013 season, the only good year he's had, I was like, man, if we lose Game 1, we're not gonna win this series, because we're gonna have to play David Price Game 2, and then if we're lucky enough to get to Game 5, we're gonna have to play him again. But we utterly shelled him because he is who he is in the postseason, and I don't think that's ever going to change. And we're going to have the Yankees in the ALDS. I mean, unless Oakland would scare me. If I were a Yankees fan, Oakland would scare me. But I don't know how you feel about that, Chris. But for now, you have to assume it is going to be the Yankees coming out of that wild card game. And Price just doesn't have a good record. And that was not the same team he faced last Sunday